Hi, today I'm going to show you how you can use your archive in Microsoft Excel to tidy up your inbox and keep it from taking up too much space. So what you'll often get is a warning telling you that your inbox is reaching its limit and you need to delete some items out of your inbox. What people generally tend to do is move it across to their folders, but all these folders are still part of the inbox, so that doesn't really help you. So you end up having to delete some of the larger items. But you can put them into the archive folder here, and your archive folder isn't stored on the cloud. It's not within the Outlook server. It's actually stored on your own hard drive. So at that point you're only limited by how much space is on your own hard drive. Okay, so all your internal folders here, your folders you've created within your inbox, your drafts, sent items, deleted items, they're all part of the cloud, and they'll all take up space, whereas your archive is on your own hard drive. So we want to move things across to there. Now this is done automatically actually by Outlook. It's turned on by default, and it will occasionally archive things, and we'll show you those default settings later and explain exactly how they work. But first I just want to show you how we can do this manually. So a really easy way of doing this manually, if I've say read this email now and I want to get rid of it, so just to keep my inbox nice and neat, but I don't necessarily want to delete it, I can just archive it. So once I've got it selected, up here on the Home tab, there's a big button there for Archive. But even easier than clicking on this button, if I hover over that, I can see that the keyboard shortcut for this is backspace. So it says Move to Archive Folder, brackets backspace. So it's the backspace button. That's a bit unusual because normally keyboard shortcuts are Control and something. So for delete, for example, it's Control and D. But for archive, it's literally just the backspace key. So if I finish reading this email, I can hit backspace and it disappears. It's not deleted, it's in the archive folder here. Okay, really simple way of doing it. Now the other way that you can do it en masse for lots of emails at once is we can go to File, and in Tools we can go to Clean Up Old Items. Incidentally, here's where we can also empty deleted items folder, but we can clean up the old items. Okay, now here's where we can pick any folder or the folders within that folder, and we can choose to archive anything that's older than a certain date. So if we've got some really old emails in there, we can pick a date quite a long time ago, or we can pick quite a recent date. We can do whatever we want there. We've got a tick box here to include items with Do Not Auto Archive checked. So I'll show you that in a second, how you can mark something as Do Not Auto Archive. So we could put specific folders as Do Not Auto Archive. But we can bypass that here. But I'm going to untick that because if I've marked it as Do Not Auto Archive, there's a reason for that. And then it tells us where it's going to save it, what the archive file is. So that's just the default archive file. I wouldn't muck about with that. I wouldn't change that at all. I can click OK. And then it might take a while depending on how many emails you've got. Currently I've got none that would meet that requirement. But depending on how many emails you've got, might take a while, and then eventually they'll all again just show up in the archive folder there. Now the default settings and how this does it automatically, you can find those just by right clicking on any folder, go to Properties, and then Auto Archive. You can see this is where we can set a certain folder as Do Not Archive items in this folder. You can do that for any of the subfolders here. And you can find the default archive settings. So this is set to just archive items using the default settings. You can bypass the default settings here by selecting your own settings down here. But we'll show you the default settings. So I can click on here. Now it's going to run the auto archive every 14 days. So on my inbox, this is what it does. It runs it every 14 days, and I can change this if I want to. It will give me a prompt before it runs the auto archive. So when I turn the computer on, I log into Outlook, I might see a little pop-up window that says auto archive is going to run. Do I want it to run? I can choose no. Okay, as long as this tick box is ticked. I can delete expired items. So this is during the auto archive. It will delete particularly old items. I can untick that if I don't want it to delete anything. And it will I can use this tick box basically to change the default settings of archiving and deleting old items. It's a bit weird. We're in the default settings, but within there's actually more default settings that I can either leave or I can click on here to change them. So we can show the archive folder in the list, which is kind of what we want really, so we can access that. It's a bit of a pain to access it if you're not showing it in the list. You can do it, but it's more difficult. And we can clean out older items that are more than 6 months old by default. So basically it'll look for anything that's 6 months old and it'll put them into the archive folder. It'll leave anything else alone. They'll sit in the inbox. It'll move the items to the default archive folder, which, like I said, you don't really want to change that. Or you can permanently delete old items. If you really know you're not going to want them, you don't really want to use your archive file, you just want to delete old stuff. When I click OK, that's the settings. They're all set in place. Like I said, we can bypass the default settings for certain folders by going in here and cleaning out items older than a certain amount of months for that particular folder, or we can just permanently delete old items for a certain folder. So there might be folders where once they're past a couple of months old, we know we definitely don't want them anymore, and we can just delete those. So we could use the bypass settings here just to permanently delete those ones in a certain folder. Okay, so that is your default archiving settings and auto archiving settings, and also how to manually run an archive within Microsoft Outlook.